Hello everyone and welcome to day 224 of Project 365. Today I decided that I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of things. First of all, I'm actually going to tell you guys my coming out story. It isn't necessarily one that's the most entertaining or the most drama filled, but it's definitely something that has sort of help develop who I am. The second thing that I'm going to do is hopefully give you guys a little bit of advice on how to come out if you haven't yet. I know it's a very difficult process, and I think that by giving information coming from the perspective of someone who's already come out, it perhaps might make it just a wee bit easier. So yeah, let's go. Alright, so when I came out, it wasn't necessarily to family, it was more to a friend. I came out to my friend Jasmine in 8th grade, but I didn't come out as a homosexual. I came out as a bisexual. My thought process during the time was that I definitely wanted to test the water and see what was going on, just because I needed to gauge how people would react. When I saw that she was okay with it, I sort of told a few more people, and I guess rumors were spread, but it wasn't anything that really affected me. In high school, however, I sort of just came out as a homosexual simply because of the fact that I didn't want to deny who I was any longer. Ever since 6th grade, I had sort of been struggling with the idea and struggling with the feelings involved, and so it was definitely time for me to sort of embrace who I was instead of denying and fighting it. Because at that point, I was under so much emotional stress because of it that it wasn't really worth struggling anymore. Now, when it comes to family, that's a different story. Not everyone was equally accepting. Um, when I told my aunt, she said she had already figured, and I guess that makes sense just because of the fact that she's so intuitive about these types of things. But when it came down to telling my father's side of the family, I guess I chose the wrong place to do it and I chose the wrong time, but it was something that I needed to do at that time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been ever content with myself. Um, you see, when I came out to my father's side of the family, it was at his funeral. Now, like I said, this probably wasn't the best timing, but metaphorically, it was the best time for me because I wouldn't have been able to live with myself if I hadn't had told him. And while he wasn't conscious to the idea that I told him, that I at least gave myself some solace in the fact that I told him. Um, Now, because of the fact that I came out then, my father's side of the family since then has essentially excommunicated me from the entire family. Whenever I try and contact someone, they simply tell me to fuck off. So, yeah, that's lovely, isn't it? Now, that being said, hopefully, with having gone through both the accepting and unaccepting, I might be able to help give a sort of not so much comprehensive, but sort of just some guidelines you should follow when coming out. Alright, so we all know coming out isn't easy. It never has been, and it probably never will be. Because you're always going to have to gauge and then gauge people's reactions, and then you're also always going to have to deal with the accepting and the unaccepting. Now, what I'm planning on doing right now is hopefully helping some of you who are having a little bit of issues or self-doubts about this entire thing. So the first thing that I would recommend is not being afraid. As terrifying as it is, don't be afraid, because then you end up psyching yourself out and then you end up never telling anyone. And that only leads to you feeling worse as time goes on. So really, what I would recommend is trying to find a friend who's as open-minded as possible and telling them. It has to be someone you can trust, and it has to be someone you can trust a lot, because this is a big deal. Um, I mean, that goes without saying. But by telling someone you trust, then it gets a little easier because then you don't feel as alone. Part of the biggest issues with coming out of our fabulously decorated closets is the realization that while we're in that closet, we feel completely and utterly alone. But the moment we can at least tell one person, you no longer feel alone. And then it isn't as scary because you start to think, hey, if this person is accepting, maybe this person will be accepting too. And then it just follows on in this lovely little train of acceptance. Now, that will vary depending on the location, the political and religious ideologies, and then just different people's perspectives about things. But generally speaking, despite the fact that we have a 60% or 70% religious base within our country, a lot of people are open and accepting to the idea of homosexuality. And if they aren't open and accepting, at least some of them are tolerant. Um, Now, that being said, what you should do if your family is religious or they openly speak out against homosexuals, the one thing that I would recommend is waiting until you can self sustain. Waiting until you can live it on your own, because then you don't put yourself in any sort of threat in terms of being kicked out of the house or anything like that. Now, I would always opt for telling someone as soon as possible, but in certain situations, if it's risking your own personal safety and well being, I wouldn't do so. Now, depending on the religiosity of your parents or family members or friends, you could tell them, and then you'll undergo what I like to call purgatory. This is the period in which you feel the most alone because no one wants to talk to you. But then you undergo this sort of process where you start to not care what people think. And then when you show that you don't really care anymore, people sort of let it go. They sort of realize, okay, this isn't some attempt at rebellion or anything like that. This is genuinely who they are, and they're finally accepting who they are. Maybe I should too. Um, Now, these are just sort of the things that I've noticed. They might not necessarily hold true for everyone, but they are definitely certain qualities that I see occur a lot when it comes to coming out. Now, when it comes to the actual decision of coming out and when, that's completely up to you. I would always say the sooner the better, but you have to make sure that you really like. I'm not trying to sound condescending, and I'm not trying to say you should make sure that you really are or anything like that. But I really do think that you should consider all the alternatives and also consider the circumstances in which you would put yourself if you did. Um, like I said, nothing is worth risking your own self worth, and nothing is worth risking your own chances of survival. And so, if you would put yourself at great risk, probably not a good idea to do it, at least not until you can self sustain. Um, but I do think that ultimately everyone should come out. At some point in their life, they should. Um, it's just more of a admitting and acknowledging who you really are. When you don't come out, it's sort of like It's sometimes to me while I was still in the closet, it felt like I was denying a piece of who I was. And as soon as I came out, I sort of became happier. Um, and I'm sure it'll be like that for a lot of you. Especially to someone in particular who I know is probably going to watch this video. You should definitely do it. Um, yeah. Uh, And anyway, question for you guys today. Have you ever had a hard time really expressing something to someone? Like, this is coming out is a hard process in itself, but it's especially more difficult when it's something so taboo. But just as a general question, have you ever had a hard time telling someone something? Whether it was that you like them, that you love them, um, that they're really annoying or obnoxious, or anything like that. So leave your interesting comments down there, and I will catch you guys later.